What are we gonna do when we get back?
What are we gonna do when we get back?
I take a shower and hit the rack.
Take a shower and hit the rack.
Welcome to Charlie Mike. If you're a combat veteran with an entrepreneurial bug and want to know what highly successful combat veteranpreneurs are doing to transform their sacrifice and experience to create their visual reality, then this is dedicated to your inspiring and fulfilling future. And now your host, Dwayne Paro.
No way, gotta run, beat, lots of fun.
Invest in Yourself ebook is my free gift to you for listening to the show and becoming part of the CO Nation. To receive your free gift, please go to landmarklifecoaching.com. Thank you for joining us on this episode. There are so many veterans with the core strengths to become successful entrepreneurs and continue to make huge positive impact on our country. Here we highlight the amazing successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Combat veterans, for the purpose of this show, are soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen who have served the United States in wars, campaigns, and in theater on foreign soil or hostile waters. Our guest today is Lane Beene. Lane is a proud Fort Worth native and product of a middle-class family. After graduating from high school in 1987, he attended the U.S. Air Force Academy to pursue his dreams of military aviation. From 1991 until 2001, he served as a pilot in the active duty Air Force at worldwide locations. In 2001, he returned to Fort Worth and joined the Air Force Reserves. He began investing in real estate in 2002 and bought many single-family homes. In 2010, he expanded his investment strategy to include multifamily properties. For the next 4 years, he has pursued investments, built a real estate team, and learned the multifamily industry. In 2014, he purchased his first apartment complex and currently partners in 6 apartment complexes in total. All right, Lane, well, welcome to the show, and thank you for being our guest.
Dwayne, thank you so much for having me. I'm humbled that you would entertain my conversation and all of your listeners as well.
Absolutely. Lane and I are connected outside of the podcast in a mastermind, so I've had the distinct honor to sit down with Lane at one of our offsites and have some great conversations about his military career as well as his entrepreneurial experience. So he's an amazing guest to have on. He's spent a lot of time in the military as well as ventured out to do entrepreneurial endeavors, which hopefully he'll get into his recent award-winning capability that he was recently honored for. So, Lane, before we get into your entrepreneurial experience, can you give our listeners an overview of your military experience?
Absolutely. So when I was a young kid, I went to an air show, and my dad pointed out all the airplanes, and he said, "Son, what do you want to do, and which one of these do you want to fly?" And I pointed to the F-16 and said, "That's the one I want to fly." And at that very young age of 5 to 6 years old, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And so in my schooling, I just really was dedicated, and I was really focused on becoming an Air Force pilot. And so after graduation, I went to the Air Force Academy and graduated in 1991, then went on to pilot training and eventually worked my way into the F-16, which I've been flying ever since 1996. And that part of that was on active duty, and then a large part of it has also been in the Air Force Reserves. And so that's where I'm currently serving, and that's my position, is I'm in the 301st Fighter Wing, and I'm an F-16 instructor pilot, along with some other duties also.
Well, outstanding. Yeah, that's a very inspirational story for those who have kids that are young and trying to help them gain that focus. Because I know as a father myself, that's one thing I've always impressed on my son is that whatever you're doing now should be in line with what you want to be doing in the future. And you're a prime example for that. And I can't wait to tell him about this because that's a great example of what I've been espousing to him. So, Lane, you went from active duty to reserve, but in this process, you've also taken on some entrepreneurial endeavors, which have grown quite well and been successful. Can you kind of take us down the path of your mindset when you decided, I want to do something that's entrepreneurial? What was driving that?
Well, you can't serve in the military forever. And when I was getting to the point where active duty, it was time for me to consider my crossroads there of to separate from active duty and continue. I knew that the reserves was going to be another good opportunity for me to continue serving. But a lot of reserve officers and guardsmen, they transitioned to other fields, and that was kind of what I was pursuing at commercial aviation. And my plans were to go on and continue into commercial aviation and become a professional pilot. However, that time frame just didn't work out because that was in the summertime of 2001, and then in the fall of 2001 is when we had the 9/11 event occur, and that really impacted, of course, the entire globe and the security of the globe and the security of our country. And it also had a very direct impact on the commercial aviation industry. And so I knew at that point that, hey, this was probably not going to work out, or the timing just wasn't going to allow me to get hired. And so really it was kind of, Dwayne, a crossroads for me, because I had been training my entire life to continue into professional aviation. And then all of a sudden that road or that door got closed right in front of me. And the opportunity to be hired was just no longer available. And I had to look for other things to do. And so it took me a little while to kind of get my feet back underneath me. But I realized that I had an interest in home improvements and making my own home better and adding little projects here and there, and just being a craftsman and being a handyman, if you will. And so there was a property in my neighborhood that had been vacant for a while, and it was a little bit run down. And I thought, well, why don't I just go and see if I can buy that and do some of the same sorts of repairs and the same sorts of improvements to this property that was vacant as I was doing to my own house, and that I had enjoyed doing. And I did that, and that was the start of my real estate investing career.
Yeah, that's interesting. That you found it through a passion that you had that was totally unrelated to all the years, like you said, of study and practice and execution of being a pilot, which I'm sure is a lot to that. Not having any pilot experience, but being able to set that aside and say, all right, now I'm going to do something that I have another passion for, which seems to be the theme for things that you've done throughout your life, is you've been able to hone in on those things that you have a passion for and become the best in them. So as you're going through this transition into the entrepreneurial space, and in particular real estate, did you have any particular resources that you used that really helped you to grow quicker in that change? Or how did you approach making that shift, as far as you went from being at the top of your game as a F-16 pilot to being kind of the new guy in the real estate realm?
Great question, Dwayne. And part of that is, in the military, and the military is such a fantastic organization. And part of the reason that they're so good is their training programs are just second to none. And so they always, you're always well prepared. You always have plenty of manuals, well, most of the time, and plenty of support and documentation and guidance, sometimes too much, as we both know. But so, I was always in the habit of trying to be prepared for missions and study the current threats and the current capabilities and the maps and your mission objectives. That's just part of military training, and it's part of preparing, and it's part of winning. And so going into an entrepreneurial endeavor like real estate, I look for resources to help me educate and help me be prepared. And I found quite a few books at my local library that I was able to read, and I was able to study and learn some of the foundational vocabulary, some of the formulas used in the calculation of different real estate figures and financial figures. And so I really became a very voracious reader at the library. I think I checked out every single book almost and read it cover to cover from the real estate, and took notes, and that was really kind of my first education. I learned a lot from just getting out and doing, and there's certainly a lot to be said for academic and book knowledge, but there may be more important in the application of that knowledge is really where you start honing down your skill sets and really learning how these principles of investing are executed. And so, to answer your question, this is a long answer. I apologize, but I've studied a lot of books, and then I went to the school of action, and I just went out and did it. A lot of times I made mistakes, but luckily none of those mistakes were lethal or knocked me out of the game.
Yeah, all those things you described are very important as an entrepreneur in particular, because you got to be a lifelong learner, and you got to be willing to go out there, get these resources, spend your spare time reading and learning this stuff, and as you said, actually just executing. Because as an entrepreneur, you can read and study forever. It's almost like building the business plan. You can refine and refine until there's no time left to refine, and things will still change once you start executing, much like all these skills that you learn through the various book sources. Once you went into practical application, I'm sure there was a little creativity required in actually applying those to every situation that you might encounter.
Absolutely. You're never ever going to find the perfect plan, and so a good plan, well executed, is always superior to a excellent plan, poorly executed. So I know that other people may be challenged, or may be afraid, or maybe scared to go out and follow their entrepreneurial passion, and that's fine, because everybody is that way. And there is no perfect plan. There is no perfect business plan. There is no entrepreneurial endeavor that is guaranteed not to fail, or guaranteed to make a 45% return on investment. If anything was guaranteed, if you want a guarantee, buy a toaster, but you're not going to find that in any business that I'm aware of. And so I just encourage people that have that desire to do entrepreneurial things is to go out and do it. That's the way. Learn as much as you can, make the best plan that's available, get good counsel, and then go execute. And execute is the word. Take action.
Absolutely, and as one of the key things you brought up there was, go out and get counsel, right? Because you can't be doing this stuff in a silo, and you can't try to do it as a one-person show. Lane and I are both in a mastermind together, and one of the things, that we talk about a lot is, isolation is the enemy to excellence, and it's so true for entrepreneurs in particular, because there's only so much and there's only so much experience you've personally had to be able to apply to any particular situation, and being able to have a network of resources out there, whether it's people as individuals or groups of people, it really is a game changer when it comes to being successful, because then you can go and bounce ideas off them, even if it just validates what you thought to be true or was the right path to take. Until you have that validation, it always leaves some amount of concern or doubt that things might not go as anticipated. So yeah, go ahead.
And Dwayne, let me say that real quick. I think you hit right on the point there. And I just wanted to add this one thing. And I add this because this is a mistake that I made in entrepreneurial development. And this is a mistake that I wish I would have corrected much, much sooner, but I just didn't. And so I want everybody to learn from my mistakes and avoid them if they can. And that is, if I had $10 to invest for an entrepreneurial endeavor, or you put any multitude you want, $100, $1,000, $10,000, $100,000. If I was new or a novice or did not know exactly the right course, and I had a $10 to invest, I would recommend that person, or Lane Beene at that time, take $7 and go buy the very best coach he could, or the best counsel that he could. And then that coach helped me make that $3 into $10 more, and then from there, multiples of that, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. See, I just cannot overemphasize the importance of good counsel, wise businessmen who have already, or business ladies who have already walked down the path that you are attempting to go, because everything that you need for success has already been written or already been done. We just need to educate ourselves and be humble enough to ask, and then be courageous enough to spend whatever resources are necessary to learn how to do it the right way. It's so much easier, and you'll get there faster when you get there, you'll be more successful. You will enjoy it more. And I use this analogy often as I say, if you wanted to learn to fly, you could go watch Google videos or YouTube videos on how to fly. I'm sure they're out there. Or you could go get a simulator program and put it on your computer and learn to fly. But eventually you're going to have to take off. And when you do that, it pays to go and hire the very best flight instructor that you can afford. He's going to make it safer. He's going to make you better. And in actuality, it's going to be a lot less expensive because you'll avoid those mistakes. So if you're in business and you're a little apprehensive, take as much as you can afford and go hire a great coach. Go get wise counsel. It may be free, it may not be, but it is well worth it, and you will benefit greatly by that counsel versus the Lane Beene method, which was do it yourself. You're good enough, you can learn it. And in some ways, you have to have that spirit, but in other ways, you have to be humble and say, I'm here to learn. Please help me advance in this entrepreneurial endeavor.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love, the fact that, you say it's art, pretty much what you need to know has already been written. And that's so true. There are some amazing resources out there that if you just follow those fundamentals, just get the fundamentals and work from there, success will come. So that's some really great advice. All right, listeners, as we're about a few minutes into this, I think we'll go ahead and take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back. Landmark Life Coaching's vision is to be the nation's premier coaching partner for inspiring and empowering those in transition. They partner with courageous groundbreakers and transitioning veterans to create fulfilling and empowering futures that they desire. They have partnered with various entrepreneurs and transitioning veterans to leverage their core strengths and implement the framework for the future they always dreamed of. Could you or anyone you know benefit from a success partner to bring clarity to your future or their future? If so, please check out landmarklifecoaching.com for more information and charliemikepodcast.com for the Charlie Mike Podcast, showcasing the successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Okay, we are back with Lane Beene. Before we went to commercial break, Lane was giving us his background in the military, very impressive, as an F-16 pilot, and how he segued into his entrepreneurial path. And Lane was sharing some really keen insights on, getting some counsel, getting coaches, getting access to various learning resources, and just jumping in and taking action. And as an entrepreneur, all of those things are fundamentally important and will definitely lead somebody, down the path to success with a lot of hard work. So, Lane, I guess, it would be great to hear more about what your actual entrepreneurial endeavor is, if you want to give us a little bit about what you're doing.
Absolutely. So I told the audience a little earlier about my very first property and how I got that. And then it was fairly successful. I didn't really have any major setbacks, although I had quite a bit of bumps and bruises and learning points in getting that first property kind of stabilized and getting a tenant in there. And then so that one house turned into two, and two to four, and four to six. And then I had quite a bit of a collection there. As I was going through a full-time, military career, it was sometimes an occasional balance, but most of the time, real estate, is a passive income stream, and so you don't have to go out and put a 9-to-5 job in every day, although sometimes you do, and that allowed me to multiply my holdings to 7 or 8, and then at that point, I had kind of gotten comfortable with that, and I was still trying to grow my business. I didn't really have a long-range vision in plan for what I was going to do, but I just knew that if I could get a couple more, then maybe that would be helpful. But around that time was 2008 when the housing market kind of crashed, and I didn't really suffer from that point other than the fact that the lending requirements on getting home loans had changed quite a bit, and they became much more stringent. And so now I wasn't able to finance the homes, and you had to buy almost the entire thing with cash, and and it just wasn't a very good financial model after that home crisis meltdown. And so that occurred in about 2008 or 2009. And so then I realized, well, I'm going to have to find some other things to efficiently place your capital, and that's where I went over to multifamily housing, and so or multifamily housing, which is basically apartments, because they're financed slightly different, and that's what I've been focusing on in the last 5 or 6 years. And this is a funny story that I tell people, Dwayne, and it goes back to what I just told you before. Is when I first started with multifamily housing or trying to buy apartments, you're stepping up into a much higher barriers of entry and much higher cost and just a lot more responsibility. And I kind of took that same, I'm going to do it myself. I fix everything myself. I'm a plumber. I'm a roofer. I'm a fencer. I'm a landscaper. I'm a property manager. And that was kind of the attitude that I had going with single family. And I tried to take that into multifamily. And the analogy that I tell people is it was like I was at a birthday party and they had hung a piñata from the center of the room. I had put a blindfold on. They'd spun me around about 50 times, and then they told me to swing at the piñata. I was putting so much effort into finding a properties, and I was completely misguided. I was just making so many mistakes. I was just spinning my wheels. I was just swinging most of the time, not even close to the actual target. And so that's why I tell people, don't make 3 or 4 months of mistakes, or longer, in my case 2 or 3 years of just trying to learn it myself. And so right around 2010, I kind of joined a real estate club, and they really started to help refining my efforts. And during that next couple of months, I was able to take all that energy that I had been expending and really focus it in almost like a laser, and just made more progress in a matter of 6 or 8 months than I had made in the last 2 or 3 years. And so that's got me to this point now where I've got several successful apartments that I either am participating in or that I lead the project in. And that's brings you up to basically 2017.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, because there's so many times that we start to build that confidence, right? We forget all the struggles, to some extent, that we went through at the previous level, and our confidence is higher, which is great. But then we become too self-reliant again on our own resources and our own self, and then you start repeating those same mistakes, again, and start limiting your success. And so you had a great example of self-recognizing that and saying, okay, I need to get the counsel of others, which was this real estate group, so that you could learn from them and they can learn from you, I'm sure, and be able to become successful at even a different level. So recently I saw online that you guys have been so successful that you won an award. What was that?
Yeah, we did. We were very, very fortunate. So the very first property that I was underneath my control or underneath my leadership, we had acquired a property that I always describe it as a national park. It could have been a national forest. It had all kinds of wild animals. It had all kinds of tree species and shrubs and bushes and weeds and grasses. It was where there was supposed to be grass, there was nothing, and where there was supposed to be nothing, there was grass and animals, and just it was a nightmare. But we had a vision for what it could be, and it was in a very good location. But it was just overrun and under maintained, and just all kinds of problems. But we were able to purchase it, and I have an exceptional team now of property managers and repairmen and construction experts, and they put a plan together to put Humpty Dumpty back together. And this time we were able to put it back together and didn't have any leftover parts. And people really responded well to it. It was just a good time, and still is a good time. And they loved the area, and they loved what we did. And it was very, very successful. And we just recently competed that property in the Apartment Association of Tarrant County, which is here in Fort Worth, Texas, which comprises pretty much everything, a huge number of square miles and a huge number of properties, in the upwards of 5,000 to 6,000 different types of properties. And we were selected number one out of all of those numbers as the best property of the year, for the reasons that I described. And I'm just really, really proud of that project. And it's just a testament to the vision of the property manager, USPC Ken Bargum, who is also another former Marine Corps, and then my contractor, Edwin Susi, who is a part of Legacy Contracting. So those guys just did a fantastic job, and they were awarded with a very prestigious award, and I'm just glad to be a part of their program.
Outstanding. Yeah, that's pretty impressive, because that's a lot of competition, and people that have with varying backgrounds and amounts of experience in the same area. So that's always impressive when you can take your team, and it's obviously, this sounds like very much a team sport to gain that level of success.
Yeah, and Dwayne, what I would say to any person of military background that is considering whatever passions they have, entrepreneurial, and they want to go into business, and they say, well, I'm not experienced in that business. I don't have any background in apartments or owning apartments, or I don't have any background in owning a store or developing software, whatever their pursuit is. And this is what I would argue with them, is I would say, maybe you don't, but what you don't know, you can learn. But the skill set that I have seen in abundance throughout the military is teamwork, and the ability to fit into a team, the ability to be part of a team member, and more importantly, that taught you how to be a team leader. And so the military people that I have seen have always shined so brightly in their ability to lead a team that it just stands apart from society, regardless of rank or regardless of your branch of service or your position. You've learned to be a good leader. You've learned to be a good follower, and those skills are 90% of the success of organizing the right team in whatever field it is: real estate or sales or marketing or production, you name it. The skills of leadership and the skills of having high character are they're the ones that push you to the top, and they're the ones that keep you at the top. So do not lose heart if you're a military member, regardless of your background, thinking that you don't have what it takes. You do have what it takes. You have what it takes in spades. You just need to learn some specific knowledge about that particular industry. Or, and this is what I would strongly advise, is go out and hire the very best professional that you can find that does that bottle cap or does that whatever it is. Pay them well, because when you work with professionals, they make you money. When you don't work with professionals, they cost you money. So the things that you don't know, don't worry about it. Go out and hire somebody that's a professional and expert in that field, and then you use your excellent military leadership and military teamwork to keep that team together. And that what I just said in the last 3 minutes is exactly the skill set that I have. I don't know that much about real estate, but I know a lot about teamwork, and I know a lot about leadership, and those skills are invaluable.
Absolutely. That's a great synopsis for sure. And, that applies to all military members and veterans that are looking to get into the veteran space, or into the entrepreneurial space, is having those leadership skills and the teamwork ability and letting your character shine through. You can build very successful teams, and that's whether you're an entrepreneur or even in a corporate environment. I've seen it, and become just as successful. So awesome. Great advice, Lane. And so as we're running out of time here, I wanted to give you an opportunity to let our listeners know how they can get in contact with you or learn more about your business.
Absolutely. Well, you can contact me by email, and my email is pilot.properties@sbcglobal.net, and I'll be glad to respond to you. I love to talk about real estate. I love to talk about leadership. I love to talk about opportunity and hope and those positive things. Character, family are all passions of mine, And anything I can do to help you be more successful, faster than I have been, I love those conversations, and they really, really just lift my spirits every time I talk about those ideas. And so please reach out if I can help you in any way be more successful.
All right. Well, thank you again for being on the show, and most importantly, thank you for your service to our country.
It is indeed my honor.
Remember, loyal listeners, we are the home of the free because of the brave.
Thank you for tuning in to Charlie Mike Podcast with Dwayne Paro. Our objective is to bring successful veteranpreneurs to help inspire and provide insight into what helped them become successful, with the hopes you can take away various strategies you can implement in your entrepreneurial journey. Visit us on iTunes, leave us a rating and review, and let us know what you thought of the show. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Hoorah!